चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं भवमहादावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावधूजीवनम् स्वामिन् नमस्ते नतलोकबन्धो कारुण्यसिन्धो पतितं भवाब्धौ मामुद्धरात्मीयकटाक्षदृष्ट्या ऋज्व्यातिकारुण्य सुधाभिवृष्ट्या स्वामिन् नमस्ते स्वामिन् नमस्ते स्वामिन् नमस्ते स्वामिन् नमस्ते। सम्पूर्णं जगदेव नन्दनवनं सर्वेऽपि कल्पद्रुमाः गाङ्गं वारि समस्तवारि निवहाः पुण्याः समस्ताः क्रियाः वाचः प्राकृतसंस्कृताः श्रुतिशिरो वाराणसी मेदिनी सर्वावस्थितिरस्य वस्तुविषया दृष्टे परब्रह्मणि सर्वावस्थितिरस्य वस्तुविषया दृष्टे परब्रह्मणि। जय गुरु जय गुरु जय गुरु। These days I am reading Prabhatarishmi, Volume 1. Many of you might have read Prabhatarishmi, and I like this Volume 1 very much. I have read it many other times. This Prabhatarishmi, Pushpa Samarpanam and Prabhatarishmi, it was started, I think, in 95 December. When we came to the ashram, we very much wanted such a program, because our programs were early morning prayers, as we have now. There was no classes in the morning. Only at night, after dinner, there is to be satsang. We have seen that in Shantiniketan, Vishwabharati, Tagore used to give some morning talks for the students there, and all on Upanishads. And those have been transcribed, and it is there, a book is there of those articles called Shantiniketan. So, when I stepped on the spiritual path, I used to read those articles, all from Upanishads. Did not understand much at that time, but it used to create a lot of sublimity, divinity, purity in the mind. And having come to stay at the feet of the Guru, always myself and Nuthu Swamiji felt that throughout the day, we are not having any program where we can offer our pranams to Swamiji right in the morning. The morning prayers is to be very long, with lot of shlokas. So we started telling Swamiji, and ultimately in 1995 we started. Initially it was only pranam, flower offering. Then we told Swamiji, please talk. Swamiji used to say, I cannot talk to 2-3 people. I can lecture. But slowly he started talking. Initially it was, he would take 1 or 2 slokas from Vivek Chudamani and other texts and explain them. Then slowly, I think, seeing our interest, and within 1 year, Satish came to stay here. He stayed here continuously for 3 years. Then some others also had come. Then from Trichur, Unnikrishnan Dada, his wife, and others, Trichy devotees started coming. So there was a group of people who, as seekers, were very eager to know about sadhana. So Swamiji started talking, and most of the talks during those times was directly on sadhana. So in the mornings, these days, for quite some time now, I get up in the morning and I read. Bhagavad Gita is the first thing that I read. I write sometimes. Otherwise, I read Bhagavatam or any other book. So recently I started reading Prabhat Rashmi again. And I was telling Swamiji yesterday or day before, the Swamiji, your Prabhata Rashmis these days have become lectures. It is no more sadhana oriented, not direct sadhana oriented. Swamiji said, what can I say? So many years have passed. How can I say everything again and again? So I felt that whatever is touching me, I will read out to you, and we can also share this sadhana, what Swamiji has said, how one should behave in the ashram, what should be their attitude when they come to the ashram, what is the attitude while doing Pushpa Samarpanam, what is the attitude to always have the divine feelings in the mind. When I read them early in the morning, sometimes tears come to my eyes, and I feel that, are we valuing all that Swamiji is telling us? The same thing I have read many times. There are so many underlines I have made, marks I have given, that these are the important things. Every time I read, there is something new, something to be still pursued, something by which we feel that we are becoming more pure. And then the feeling comes, the melting of the heart, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of being fortunate to be at the feet of the Master. And also there is a thought, are we valuing all that he is telling us? See, all of you have come here for Guru Purnima, and throughout the year, many of you come. Many times there will be such crowd, not so much maybe, but there will be crowd. Sometimes there are only a few. And every day Swamiji is talking to us. When he goes to the centers, he talks. When he meets, somebody wants to meet him personally, he will talk to them. So many instructions he is giving us. And always his instructions are to elevate the mind, to remain happy and peaceful in the face of all that happens in life, whether it is adversities or whether it is something to be delighted upon. So his only aim is to make us feel unaffected in life, remain in this life, live in this life without having any bondage, with peace and happiness. But how much do we pursue that? Do we? Or even if we do, what effort do we make to go further? Do we stop at a time thinking that, yes, I'm okay, now I'm much better than what I was? Or are we still giving an effort? If you ask me, I feel that there is never any end to learning, never any end to doing sadhana. Always, whatever happens, there is something to learn, something to be enlightened with, something which will feel that, oh, I can do this, I can achieve this. So that is why this thought comes again and again, that we are hearing. Just now when I was being escorted by two of our devotees, one was saying that, both were saying that, Swamiji's today's lectures was very good. Every day's lecture is very good actually. Maybe one day, particularly one day, it strikes the heart. Maybe that day we feel that, it has taken me higher up. But are we to stop only there? See, I have chosen the topic. I was asked, what should be the topic? I said that let it be sadhana in Guru Sannidhi, because that is what I know. That has been my life ever since, from the age of 23 when I started writing to Baba and I stepped on this path. it has been Guru Sannidhi and Guru Sannidhi alone. And I don't know anything apart from that. And I have always felt that once I have taken to this path, I must always be aware that I am a seeker. My life is not like anybody else, only to be remaining in the worldly thoughts, giving priority to those. Always it was in the mind. Yes, I was young, so naturally there will be a lot of distractions. I was in the professional life also. So there has been many kinds of distractions or many kinds of activities that I have gone through. But never, I think, this thought went away from the mind that primarily I am a seeker. This I should not do because I am a seeker. This I should do because I am a seeker. And when what a seeker should do, I have done something otherwise, I have wept. Mentally I have wept. Or sometimes shed tears. That being a seeker, how could I be like this? Being a seeker, how did I not remember God throughout the day? It happens throughout the day. Maybe morning I did my meditation and maybe some little bit of some devotional practice. And after that, throughout the day, just the day went past. And at night I will feel, oh, see how the day has been. So there will be repentance, a feeling that, oh God, when will that day come when I will not have to repent like this? When will that day come when every moment I will feel I am surrounded by God? Many years have passed. I was 23 years old and now I am about to be 70. So many years have passed. And I feel that the one thing that I have wanted then and I have wanted and yearned for, which became more and more intense, has been to constantly have the touch of God or self always. Always. In Bhagavatam, in Prahlada's story there is a word, Govinda Parirambhitaha. What is that? Being embraced by Govinda always. Govinda Parirambhitaha. Say, Govinda Parirambhitaha. Govinda Parirambhitaha. I first heard this word when Swamiji was giving a lecture and he had taken up Prahlada's episode. And when he explained it, there was horripilation in the body. Can there be such a state when we can, remaining in everything, we don't lose the touch of the self. We don't lose the touch of the indweller. Can there be such a state? If there is, why not I have it? How will I have it? What will make me have it? This has been my seeking always, and even now it is. Yesterday, when I came to the night satsang, I think that just by that time Swamiji was replying to one question. Was not the question that how can we have, how to remain? Yes. How to remain? Anchored. Right. Anchored. Yes, that word was very nice because it really gives, that is what one should be, anchored in God. How to remain anchored in God always. And I was not there when what Swamiji spoke, but he has been speaking always. So, and I was feeling that on this, I think we can talk for ages. Because this is what is a sadhana. How to remain anchored. How to remain anchored in God. Because, see, we come, we sit, we talk. We may be doing our spiritual practices, reading, studying, and with like-minded people we discuss, everything we do. But does the mind remain anchored? It doesn't. It doesn't. It goes away toward to the family, especially for remaining in the household. It goes away to many, many things, many activities, the family people, then the possessions, all these things. Even in spiritual life, the mind will not remain anchored, even though you are at the feet of the Guru. If your mind goes to competition, jealousy, feeling that this work I don't want to do, that is likes and dislikes. So wherever you are, if likes and dislikes come and grip you, if there is ego in the mind, or if there is attachment, if there is possessiveness, the mind will not be anchored. So how to remove them? So should I talk about that? So I will take up relevant portions from Prabhat Reshmi and then I will explain. Is it okay? Before that, I will teach you one shloka. The yearning. See, the question was how to remain anchored in God always. That question itself, it must have intense yearning. Intense yearning. What does that mean? What kind of yearning? That is, to the exclusion of everything else you must want it. Not that I want property also, money also, daughter to be married, son to be placed in a good job, everything else, and also anchor in God. It will not do. To the exclusion of everything else. The yearning should be that. Yearning should be that. Don't think that having that yearning, you have to leave the household. Not at all. In Yoga Vasishta Ramayana, Vasishta Dev says, there is a sloka, let me remember it. Nowadays I forget slokas. Bahi kritrima samrambho hridi samrambha bhajjitaha karta bahihi akartantaha loke vihara raghava. Bahi kritrima samrambho hridi samrambha bhajjitaha karta bahihi akartantaha loke vihara raghava. Sri Rama was saying that I will not rule the country, I will not do anything because so much of misery is there, what is the use, etc. And for 18 days, Vasishta Dev gave lot of upadesha to him about the mind. And he says at one point that, O Rama, be active outwardly. Bahi kritrima samrambho. Kritrima means artificially. Show to everybody that you are in everything. You are involved in everything. So look after your family. If you are going to earn, you are going to office, do that. Whatever is necessary for your family and otherwise, all that you do. Bahihi kritrima. That is not the real you. You should show that you are attached to them, you love them, everything you do. Hridi samrambha varjitaha. But inside, you should be dispassionate. Samrambha varjitaha. Karta bahihi. Outside, when people look at you, they will feel that, oh, he's a very active person, interested in everything. Akartantaha. You should be akarta inside. Non-doer inside. Loke vihara raghava. Hey Raghava, O Rama, this is how you should be active in the world. So, this is how one should, even in the household, we can remain like this. So the intense yearning should be there. You must develop intense yearning. The yearning should not be spread into everything else. That I want this also, that also, that also, and I want this also. Spiritual upliftment I want. This will not do. So in Bhagavatam, this shloka, it says, what should be the kind of yearning? So we'll learn this shloka and then proceed. You have got the papers have been given. Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudhartaah priyam priyeva vyushitam vishannaah manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudhartaah priyam priyeva vyushitam vishannaah manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. Full. Can you chant? Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha. Say the full length. Stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudhartaah priyam priyeva vyushitam vishannaah manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. Together full. Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudhartaah priyam priyeva vyushitam vishannaah manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsatara kshudhartaah priyam priyeva vyushitam vishannaah manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam. What is the meaning? It is this. This is being addressed to Aravindaksha, Sri Krishna, the Lord. So the devotee is saying, Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha. Khagaha means bird. The birds which are Ajata paksha, that is the fledglings, the baby birds. The baby birds, Ajata paksha means what? Wings. Their wings also have not grown. They are so small. So those small birds, what do? They just remain in the nest and they just look forward to when the mother will come with food. Then they will make a big opening and the mother puts the food into the mouth. So they are constantly waiting for the mother to bring food to them with that kind of waiting, with that kind of yearning that when the mother will come. Stanyam yatha vatsataraha kshudhartaah. Vatsatara means very, very small calves, maybe just born or maybe 1 or 2 days old. As those calves, they are very small, when they are hungry, they look forward to the mother's milk. The yearning with which they look forward for the mother to give them milk. And the third is Priyam Priyeva Vishitam Vishanna. the Priya, the wife who is very sad because the husband has gone somewhere out of station for a long time. Pravasagatam. Vishitam means pravasagatam, who has gone to pravasa, that is outside. So when a couple, when the wife is very fond of the husband, she is very, very sad when the husband has gone away for a long time. She looks forward and waits when the husband will come. These three kinds of yearning and waiting the mind must have for the darshan of God, for the experience of God inside. So every day we can see whether my mind is really yearning like this, or my mind is yearning for other enjoyments. What is other enjoyment in the society? Friends, party, going out to, going to various places, call somebody in your house or you go to a party, always thinking about your office, your profession, or the children not getting married, the son not getting job. So where is your mind? Mind is not yearning for God. Mind is yearning for other things which we know very well. As please, those who are on spiritual path, they know very well that from all these objects, the people, we are not going to get permanent happiness at all. Everything is fleeting. Everything is fleeting. We are not going to get permanent happiness. But still, the mind does not make a one-pointed yearning for God. So unless that one-pointed yearning is there, how will we get Him? How will we know the self? Or how will we get the vision of God? See, when we study, suppose we are studying in school or in the higher centers, and we want to become the best student, get very good marks, because we are aiming at, after getting good marks, I can take up a very good line as for higher studies. After that, what will I get? I will get a very good job. I will earn more. This is our aim. And to fulfill that aim, what do? One-pointedly we will study before the exams. One-pointedly we will want to give all our heart and soul into the studies. Are we doing that? So when we ask these questions, the questions are really not necessary. You must be able to understand why you are not able to experience God, why you are not able to progress, why still you are gripped by misery and all kinds of non-fulfillment in life. Is it? Do you understand? Dr. Swamiji was taking the classes Sadhana Chatushtayam. This is nothing different. If you have to be a seeker, you must have Sadhana Chatushtayam. And this is one of them, that bringing about that one-pointedness. He said, I heard him, I was watching the live stream. So he says that mumuksha we will not, but mumuksha, one must have strong mumuksha. Unless we have that strong, intense, absolutely one-pointed mumuksha, all these other things will not come. All the four are related to each other, complementary to each other. When one grows, another grows. When one goes down, others also go down. So for a seeker, what is necessary? See, all of you have come. We know all of you. We love all of you. In this book, at one point, I won't be able to take that portion maybe easily. Swamiji is saying, I am absolutely disappointed by our seekers who come and listen to me, because they do not pursue what I am saying. Absolutely disappointed. So, I think if we want to progress, and I think all of you want to progress, you must see every day, analyze yourself and see whether your attraction to worldly things is increasing or still what it is, or your attraction to know yourself or to know God is increasing. What you have to leave, what kind of attachment, possessiveness, etc., traits of your mind which bind you, you have to leave. You must analyze those and make a sincere effort, genuine effort to remove all those things. Shall I read from here? Yesterday, this is 3rd July 1997, that is just before Guru Purnima. Yesterday I was mentioning about some of the disciplines that are necessary for taking up a life of spiritual seeking. Many of you are here now, exactly the same setting. Many of you are here now. You have come to the ashram mainly for your spiritual seeking. You may be hailing from varied professional, cultural, economic and social backgrounds. All of you have in common the aspiration and love for spiritual life. That is what I am also saying. You love this life. Otherwise, why should you come? You are coming, and many of you are coming again and again who can come. Many of you are actually regular visitors. Who was telling me yesterday? Nandita. I was saying, Nandita, what do you think of the group this time? Nandita said that most of them we know, our regular devotees only who keep on coming. And some are new, but they are active in the centers. So you have a love for spiritual life. All of you have in common. You all are seekers. But one thing I have noticed in almost all seekers is that they lack the awareness of being a seeker. The emphasis that oneself is a seeker is not there. That I am a seeker, so that comes in front. That comes in a front. Say the head of the family, a father, he knows that I am the father, I look after the family. So everything, apart from everything else, he has that feeling that I am the head of the family, I have to look after. Or maybe a daughter or a son. They know that first I am a daughter or a son. After that I am a student. After that I become a professional. So first I am a daughter. And that same daughter, when she gets married, she becomes a wife. Then she becomes maybe a mother. Then all these roles start. But as a seeker, do we ever think that, no, we are seeker. So there are certain duties, some disciplines the seekers must have. Are we fulfilling that? Do you get me? Are you sleepy? Samosa vagera khake. So we must be aware that we are a seeker. So what are the qualities of a seeker? That is what Nutan Swamiji has taken. Sadhana Chatushtayam. Actually 3 days, I don't think that it can be dealt with in 3 days. But anyway, you have come to know what it is. And seekers' qualities. If you open the Bhagavad Gita, you will find chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 14. Later on, in every chapter more or less, the qualities are given which we should acquire, cultivate, develop. We read the shlokas, but these shlokas should give us horripilation, that, oh, I have to be like this. I have to be like this. I started reading Bhagavad Gita when I stepped into this path. Nothing, knowing nothing. I used to see my grandmother reading it every day. And she told that if you read it 18 times, you will have moksha. So that was the only thing that I knew. But I started reading the Bhagavad Gita. Did not understand Sanskrit much. Little bit I knew. And the meanings were there. Some of the shlokas went so deep into the heart. I think one of them is that Vihaya kamanya sarvan pumams charati nispriha nirmamo nirahankaraha sa shanti madhigacchati. I thought, my goodness, that there can be such a state. Vihaya kamanya sarvan. If being nirmama and nirahankara, not having any kind of desire, you can roam about, you will get shanti. So, and there are so many other shlokas. So these slokas, when we are reading Bhagavad Gita every alternate day in the Samadhi Mandir. While reading, are we thinking what are we reading? Maybe the full sloka meaning, it may not strike you. Or maybe it may strike you if you are reading it again and again with meanings. But the words, some words are so beautiful. We can acquire that. We can think over that. The whole day we can think over that. One day I was reading, what is that? Manaprasada Saumyatvam. I got stuck there only. Manaprasada. Oh, there is a state where Manaprasada, that is, the mind is absolutely quiet, placid, always. So that can be. I can have that state. So whatever we read, we should be like this. One must have a very clear evaluation of what is meant by spiritual life and seeking. Who is saying all these things? Swamiji. What is it that you are seeking? What is meant by spiritual pursuit? What are its merits? And to where is it expected to lead you? All this we must know. All these thoughts and inquiries must engage your mind and intelligence to give you a proper evaluation and understanding of your pursuit. That is, what are we seeking? What is our aim? What are we doing? What are we expected to do? This thought should be there in the mind. It's not that I come to Swamiji, I love Swamiji, I am very devoted to Swamiji, I listen to his lectures wherever it is, and I feel very happy when he talks to me. Not that. Not only that, I must know by remaining in this path, what are we supposed to achieve? In religion, the emphasis is on external God, but in spirituality, the whole focus must shift from outside to inside. Inside means with these thoughts. The manner in which you express yourself has also to be thoroughly spiritualized. Your words and actions, the way you speak, sit and get up, the way you walk and prostrate, indicate the mental makeup and purity. That is why we ask you to maintain cleanliness in all daily habits. The more you spiritualize your behavior and you are attentive to disciplining every facet of your life and activities, the more sublimity you will feel. All of you practice dhyana. Most of you practice dhyana because most of you are initiated. What is this dhyana for? Don't think that dhyana is always for samadhi or self-absorption. Absorption may be one aspect of it. What about the life before and after absorption? Dhyana is an inward focusing of the mind to understand the defects and deficiencies of our system and thereby to bring about purity. So what is this dhyana for? It is not that every day Swamiji has told 1 hour you should do dhyana, morning and evening, so we do dhyana. And maybe sometimes a samadhi-like experience is had. It is not that alone. What about when you get up from the dhyana, before and after it? That is, the wakeful hours is the long hours of our life. Dhyana may be maximum 2 hours or 3 hours. Rest of the time, how we are. Rest of the time is our mind is one-pointed. While dhyana, what we are doing? We are trying to focus our mind. And beyond dhyana, before and after, we are in the midst of activities. All of us are active. So what are we trying to do at that time? Is our mind still focused? We find that it is not. It goes to various other thoughts. It does not remain on the thought of God or the self. So what is to be done? As you progress in your sadhana, the disciplines become more and more inward and subtle. until at last the mind becomes one with purity. Here he is not describing what is the discipline. We'll come to all that. How every moment, I will try to take in these 3 days, how every moment you can bring back your distracted mind and put it on the thought of God. What exactly has to be done? What I have done, I can tell you, I can share with you. When the ego is dissolved, when the kartru bhoktru bhava, doership and enjoyship is lost, everything proceeding from the mind will become pure. Such wholesome spiritualization can be accomplished by living in the proximity of the saint or guru. In Guru Sannidhi, now you have come for a short Guru Sannidhi. In Guru Sannidhi, the whole atmosphere is spiritual. Whatever is done in the ashram is an extension of spirituality. Don't think that Guru Seva means doing only some personal service to the Guru. See, everybody will not get the chance of doing personal service to the Guru. Say, making his bed or looking after his clothes, medicine, accompanying him when he goes for a lecture. All these are personal services. All will not have that chance. So, Swamiji is explaining that any work related to the ashram is Guru Seva. A service primarily meant to purify the seeker. All this work that we do in the ashram, or now you can say in the centers also, is primarily meant to purify the seeker. It may be cleaning vessels, fixing stamps, going to the town for bringing the required items, or any other activity you are asked to do either by me or Ma or Nutun Swamiji. As you do the allotted work, so work can be not liked by you. It is very easy to do the work which you like. You will be very happy doing that work. Suppose you are given a work which is not liked. Then also, as you do the allotted work, you must think, am I doing it cheerfully? This is what? This is one direct step in sadhana. Am I doing it cheerfully? Is this being offered by me as a worship to the Gurudev? Do you get it? Do you feel sublimated by hearing this? Every work. Some people are doing work in the Annakshetra. Nowadays, of course, not many youngsters are there. In our days, we as well as the youngsters would come. We used to sweep and mop and all we had to do ourselves. But now we have so many assistants, we don't have to do that. So whether we are cleaning a bathroom or whether we are doing work in the Samadhi Mandir or Baba's shrine, cleaning flowers, everything is a worship. It should be taken as a worship. When I came here first, Swamiji asked me, do you know how to cook? So I said, yes, I know how to cook. So Swamiji said, there was one brahmachari. So I said, I want to send him to town for some other work. So can you take charge of cooking? Now cooking means cooking in the firewood. I think I have told this many times. Firewood oven. And Swamiji comes very grimly and says, use more of firewood and less of gas. Because resources were very less. And our firewood was so much. So we are using firewood. Gas was used very, very occasionally to boil the milk and make tea and coffee. That's all. So I said, okay, but I don't know any South Indian cooking. So the brahmachari taught me. First of all, how to prepare rice in big vessel with lot of water, boil the rice and then pour away the starch. So when I tried, lot of rice also would go away. But then I mastered it. I mastered even this, making chutney, that big one round thing is there, that is attikal. So your hand should go like this and along with that, this This hand should go like this. So two different kinds of motions. Very often there won't be any power supply in the evenings. So naturally we couldn't use the mixie. So I started cooking. So I started cooking, and cooking were for three, like for all others, not many were there, maybe maximum 10, 12 people. That was one kind of cooking. For Swamiji, another kind of cooking. And for Mataji, another kind of cooking. So from morning till night, I was in the kitchen. From that day to now means I don't have to cook. For years now, I don't have to cook because others are cooking. I also became sick, so I do not dare to go and cook. Some days, of course, I do. So I have felt the kitchen is a temple, because my work was there mostly. My work was there. So I felt the kitchen was a temple, and everything I will keep neat and clean as we do in a temple. Everything should be known to me, and making the food with lot of love. Whatever I did not know, many things I learned after coming here. But all that I learned, and there was a lot of joy in doing that. Sometimes, there will be fruits. Now, if I think if I start telling history of the ashram, that will be very interesting, but all time will go in that. Those days, fruits were very rare. People were not bringing fruits. Fruits were not available in Thrissur also. But sometimes, our only fruit was the kela, that is the plantains. Various kind of plantains in the garden. And now that reminds me, when Bharat, when he was 24 years old, he came for a 2-month stay here, and he said, I eat fruits. So where from to give him fruits? So we gave him only plantain. And he said, I eat salads. American boy coming to stay in Venginesheri village for 2 months. So salads. Somehow we gave him, I don't remember, carrots, and cucumber was very rare, but I think we were giving. And he will sit in the first batch and eat and get up in the last batch, because, we didn't have a way of preparing a salad also was not known much. So fruit which was given to him was plantain. I remember while he was leaving, he said, in my whole life I will never take plantains anymore. So much he had eaten. That kind of joy it gave. And another thing I remember, when we first came, it was in May. It is very strange and quite. We left home on 13th May, Swamiji's birthday. Reached here on 16th because we missed our train in Chennai. So one day was lost. We reached here on 16th. Then after some 2 months or so, there was Guru Purnima. So Swamiji had a habit at that time. Now Swamiji is quite, I would say, maintains the routines. He has to, because people are more in number. Those days, Swamiji, early morning, you will hear, when I used to come for making coffee, tick, 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 his typewriter will be on. He's either writing for Vichar Setu or replying some letter. And if he has written an article which he has become, ecstatic while writing, so as soon as the prayers will stop, he will call everybody and sit there, listen, and he will start reading out what he has read. Meanwhile, we have prepared coffee and tea in the kitchen, and those are getting cold. So all this used to happen. So he was calling us and wanting us to listen to what he was saying, what he has written. Suddenly, in the midst of that, he said, "Oh, I have to go and dye my dhoti, my mundu. Some devotee has given for Guru Purnima, please Swamiji, wear this dhoti, new dhoti." So Swamiji said, "I have to dye it." He just mentioned it and went. So I went behind him and said that, "Swamiji, if you will teach me how to dye a dhoti, dye a cloth, I will learn, and from now on you won't have to do it." From that day onwards, for many, many years, after even we took up sannyasa, then Swamiji's mind, Notun Swamiji's also, I was doing myself. Then I taught it to Kausalya because my health was failing and more number of clothes were there. So, all these are personal service. So, I always feel that I got such an opportunity to have personal service. All will not have. But any work that is done, say now most of the things which I've been doing for Swamiji, I'm not doing now. But that doesn't take away the joy. The joy is in doing anything of the ashram, anything that is around him. Even staying at a distance, if you're helping in Swamiji's mission, that is a seva. Such wholesome spiritualization can be accomplished by living in the proximity of saints or Guru. In Guru Sannidhi, the whole atmosphere is spiritual. Whatever is done in the ashram is an extension of spirituality. Don't think that Guru Seva means doing only some personal service to the Guru. Any work related to the ashram is Guru Seva. A service primarily meant to purify the seeker. That has to be remembered. All that we are doing, even listening, applying it to our own lives. Say all of you are listening. Maybe some of you are serving food in the Annakshetra. Maybe some are cutting fruit. Then these people, they are taking video. Others are doing the live stream, all these things. But all may not be having any particular job. But your presence will become a seva. When whatever you are listening, whatever Swamiji is telling in his lectures or the other lectures, you think, ruminate over that, not get engaged into other chit-chats. Sit and ruminate over that, or maybe 2-3 people together, you discuss about that, then that is a seva. Otherwise not. Do you get me? See, if you are sincere seekers, I am surprised why don't you have questions? I am surprised. 2 days passed and no questions. Swamiji said no questions. If you are sincere seekers, you must have questions. Then is it that you are fulfilled? Or is it that you have become complacent? Or is it that you are shy to ask? If you are shy to ask, write in a paper and submit. But questions you must have. That means you are not applying your viveka. You are not applying your viveka. Sadhana chatushtayam is very, very important. You are not applying your viveka, that is why you are not having a question. You can have it regarding the Gita that Swamiji is teaching. You can ask him, Swamiji, all that we are reading everything. But when we are in the situation, we don't remember it. This is a question. And let us see what Swamiji replies. It will be something very good to follow and pursue. There should be questions. This Bhagavad Gita, I'm reading over and over again for a long time now. But still, I will ask questions because we don't meet Swamiji. All of us are busy. So we meet, 3 of us, we meet only at the dining table. And that is the time when all of us want to share whatever we want to tell each other. So there will be something will become important and then only that will be discussed. In between that, sometimes phone call comes. Those who serve us, they get disgusted because they will keep on asking, shall I give you more? But we are discussing. Or this is the situation. But I have taken moments when that day, whatever I have read, I have not felt very convinced. I will ask Swamiji that please tell me. And then Swamiji gives a reply. Sometimes I feel that, I'm not able to keep everything in my mind because Swamiji immediately starts telling in a very, very ecstatic manner what you should do to solve your problem. So I am very unhappy that you don't have questions. I hope today you will have some more questions. Ask questions about your life, about your spiritual life. People come to Swamiji, they take blessings, and most of the time when we go to different centers, people will come. They will come with the family, they will take blessings and will say that please bless everybody. Never a question on spirituality or spiritual progress is raised. My dear souls, the greater part of your sadhana will be when you are working, serving, interacting. You will find that the mind has a number of traits to be sublimated. People come here for peace. That is why I don't generally criticize them. I don't point out their impurities because they like to be appreciated or praised. Because nobody will like to hear. If somebody points out anybody's defects, people will not like. I do correct the seekers when they come closer. But I take quite some time before I speak a harsh word. When I speak a little rough or harsh, I personally feel that my fondness and closeness at that point would be more, because it is that freedom alone which allows me to speak like that. That is, a disciple should give freedom to the Guru to speak to him whatever the Guru wants to be told. Not sugarcoating, oh, you are very good, you are very good. What he feels like, he must be. The disciple should give the freedom to the Guru. I've got many scoldings from Swamiji because I will be arguing a lot, and Swamiji gives that freedom also to argue. How much we used to argue when Swamiji used to have these movements, because we will say, no, this point is not all right, it should be written like this or that. So my nature is a little argumentative. And Swamiji would say, you are always blameful. So even the other day, Swamiji said, I said that even now you are saying I am blameful. Swamiji said, no, you are very good. Only this one incident or something regarding workers. So the freedom is given. That is why he can scold. So he says, to the nearer and dearer ones, I have told times without number, my role is to make you praiseworthy, not to praise you myself. So this interactional facet of the sadhana is very important in the ashram life. It gradually makes you pure and sublime and almost unknowingly takes you to the level of samatva. Samatva. Why? Because when you serve, what is Guru Seva? Swamiji is saying that any kind of work, the work you may not like to do. Some work you may like, some work you may not like to do. But if you have a seeking in the mind, by doing that which you are not liking to do, what is happening? The Guru is taking you towards samatva, that is beyond likes and dislikes. Our whole life, our problem is because we have strong likes and dislikes. Strong likes and dislikes. And that comes from ego. Then when suppose we say to somebody, they see this comes from your ego. Then also we'll hear, please don't tell me that I have ego. I do not have ego at all. When the Guru is saying that it is from your ego, we must simply keep quiet and introspect and find out where is the ego lying, how I can remove it. Prabuddham vimuktam vikaradihinam prasannam sada nityabodhasvarupam param nischalam nirgunam sarvarupam bhajeham sada nusmarami pranami.